Welcome, Lea. We're sitting in your exhibition Stripped that was installed here at Moderne Museet in November last year, November 2020. And due to the pandemic, it's only quite recent that it was open to the public. And actually, it's also the first time today that you are seeing the exhibition. You saw the exhibition for the first time a few hours ago. Maybe for starters, what's it like to finally see it in the flesh?
It was really nice to touch it. That was what I have really longed for, because one thing is to have it in the head and to see images of it and have this process of being on team and trying to rearrange and arrange all the elements, but to actually touch the blades. I mean, many of the other pieces I had in Copenhagen before they left. So these ones I haven't just not seen for half a year, but the blades in here was very special for me.
Yeah, of course. Is it indiscreet to ask if you would have changed anything if you had done the installation by hand?
I think I decided not to have it as an option, but I also noticed that I just had to rearrange the bean bag a little bit when I saw it, and I guess, yeah, just touching it was important for me to just literally put my hands on all the elements and have this feeling of, okay, they're here and I am here. It's not only, yeah. At some point I was really thinking, okay, this was really like a ghost exhibition. It was like it wasn't really happening, but when then people started to have opinions about the exhibition, I thought, okay, it might be there.
It must exist.
It must exist.
It's not just a figment of your imagination, thankfully. Yeah. I mean, could you talk a little bit about how the works came into being? I mean, this is the blades of the windmill are obviously a ready-made, and for some works you've worked with specialists, but I think it's fair to say that it's characteristic of your process, of your artistic process, that you often work with a group of friends and you also make as much as you can yourself.
Yeah. It's true that it has been sort of a method for me to work with my friends, and I think that's when you're a workaholic, it's nice to work with your friends, and it also makes sense for me to be in that process with your friends, because you then have also intimacy that I think is hard to find when you only work with a professional company or whatever. Of course, when it comes to the blades themselves, they're just like cut in the pieces that I decided them to be cut in, and it was not like a process with friends. Although actually I went to see them where they were placed together with a friend and my child for the first time. So, but then the other works is. Yeah, they are drawn and built and made with experiments with friends, and then I have the small icons that were something that I needed to do to sort of go into that process of maybe also loading the work by myself. But at the same time, I also feel that these works are not really myself, so that's also a bit strange maybe. But yeah, so but I have a very wonderful group around me, and they changed a little bit, but this time is not an exception. It was really wonderful to work with the people that were involved, both with generating the animation and also doing the Pentecost experiment, and yeah.
I mean, in your own words, Stripped is an exhibition about excited and exhausted states. So there's energy in play, or energies. There's energy that comes and goes, and as the title suggests, the body is in play too, or different bodies for that matter, and not just human bodies. The exhibition is not just about human states of being, it's also about animated matter, to call it that. So could you talk a little bit about what is it that has been stripped in this space where energies and bodies meet?
I guess when it comes to the title and to the title itself, Stripped, I guess at that point I was really inside of the world of particles, and there I was reading these interesting ideas about quantum field theory, where you have these particles in the virtual space, so it would be in this infinite realm, where something that we cannot really get access to, and they talk about that these naked or bare particles in that realm are untouchable. You need to dress them, and I thought there was just something beautiful about these words. And then, of course, there's also this small, maybe playful salute to Duchamp with the Stripped Bare. So it works on different levels. It points to different parts of the exhibition, and also to the way that I tried to conceptualize it, where I wanted it to be kind of really a void or stripped down to a few essential things that I thought that I could talk about. Because how do you articulate these untouchable energies, so to speak? So, and of course, just when I say that, I also hear that it sounds strange to say that I work with untouchable energies, but when I have like 6 tons of wings placed in the exhibition, but I still think that sometimes to grasp this ungraspable, you need to ground it somehow. You need to work with gravity, and so it felt good to have an element that was so physical, to sort of say, here we are. And of course, with the cuts, I made also portals into a different dimension of the windmill that you would normally not get access to.
Quantum physics plays a big role in the exhibition and in the ideas behind the exhibition. How did you pick up quantum physics as an artistic theme? I guess it was something that happened in your work 7 or 8 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, and that you have stuck with since then.
Yeah, true. I mean, I think it's important for me to say that I'm really not an expert in quantum physics, but what I really loved about it was the language that was involved. I felt that it was really a generator for speculations about our existence. And the first time or actually for years, I was exposed to quantum physics through Kundalini yoga and tantric technology. So of course that's not the quantum physics that you will be taught at the Niels Bohr Institute, but it was still some of the languages that was then transformed into a spiritual practice. And then I was reading some theory, feminist theory, with Karen Barad as maybe the most famous one. And I then decided to also go back and then try to read Niels Bohr. And then later Wolfgang Pauli is also a physicist that I have worked with, because he was actually also inspired by mysticism and had one foot in that realm.
You are currently writing an artistic PhD at the Art Academy of Malmö. Could you say something about the relationship between your artistic practice and your scientific research as a doctoral student?
I don't know if I see it as as such, but yeah, of course there are relations, because I think what quantum physics or theory teaches is also that things are entangled, but it also maybe underlines how things are also different and how you can make new patterns if you smash or collide things. And I guess that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in putting together domains that are normally more separate. And I guess with let's say the spiritual realm, which is one thing that I try to put together with the language of quantum physics. Already there you have a collision, but you also have places where the language just means simply different things, but they talk about the same, like raising the energy or something like that. So I think when we talked about like excited states in particles or in bodies, I think it's a beautiful image, and also an image of that you can maybe excite something to a certain point, and then it will also de-excite, or it would also exhaust itself. And I guess this exhibition is placed in that zone of between some sort of excitement. There's like a call. You hear the call, the heart, the God. There's a call for something. There's a call to maybe connect yourself with something unknown, or something like infinite. And then there's always this sort of very like brutal cut or dressing process going on. So it also means that you cannot really get access, or maybe only for a short moment.
Speaking of brutal cuts, I mean, we are sitting next to what used to be the blades of a windmill, that you have had cut into pieces. So as they lie here on the gallery floor, they look like pieces of a fallen giant that have been opened up to reveal a vacuum or an emptiness inside of them. Can you talk about the sources of inspiration for this work?
Yeah, at least I can try to actually talk about how disturbing it felt when this windmill sort of returned to me again and again. I think I've had a fascination for these wind turbines since childhood. I grew up with one of these in the garden. So. And I was really scared about it, but also fascinated about it. And I kind of knew that this was the symbol of the good, because that was what made us, we could give energy to our house and whatever. And it was really a no-go to think about it as a bad thing. And then I started to research the mill as a concept, and I came in touch with the very first windmills, which are these prayer wheels. And I thought there was a beautiful connection, and also maybe something that are lost in maybe from that knowledge, where you would think like the prayer wheel as something where you will turn these prayer wheels, these cylinders, to get in contact with the cosmos. And it was more like maybe like a touch to return, to give something back. Where it feels like our mills, they're really to have. We want more. And of course there was a project in the hippie times, where the windmill sort of was, okay, that's a symbol of a new way of generating energy, which is beautiful, and it was an alternative to nuclear power. And funny enough, when I've been working with all these particles and quantum physics that are, of course, also completely connected with nuclear power, it was interesting to have then suddenly this other energy generator coming in and just like wanted to be part. And then I got the opportunity to go to Risø, which is the place where actually we started like the nuclear testing in Denmark, and then there was, of course, with the hippies, a strong movement against it, and then Risø turned into being a test center for windmills. So there's again like this putting together two systems, but I mean they still feed each other, and yeah. So I don't know if I'm just like all over the place right now, but yeah.
No, but I mean, as you point out, the windmill has a history and a recent history too. That's very interesting. And today the windmill is perhaps no less of a political symbol than it was in the 60s, where it came with some utopian ideas and represented a clean alternative of energy production, as you say. Today, the windmill promises something else. It still promises clean energy, obviously, but it also promises that we can continue with our lives as we know our lives, right? But only without destroying the planet. But now the windmill has the status of a state-sanctioned universal solution to the ills of the world. So I'm wondering, is your work also, is this work also a commentary on the ethics or the politics of current discussions of sustainability?
Well, at least that's, I mean, I hope that it can at least point into an awareness around how we use our energy. I feel that there needs to be a shift in a way. We really need to rethink the way we use energy, and of course these like waste products of even so-called good machinery is also a waste, and so it is like there's something about that full circle that we are not really taking care of, and to claim that it should be like a spiritual dimension, I don't know, but at least an awareness and some maybe even touching these mills also makes us understand a bit more about. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what I want to say with that, but I have a feeling that also being in touch with the leftover is probably a reminder for societies like in Scandinavia, where we have a lot, and it's very easy to be like leftish and talk about all the good things to do and then still consume, and yeah.
There's a very interesting sort of dimension of time. There's an interesting temporality in the work as well, because it's as if these pieces of the windmill blade represent a future that they represent the remains of a future that we haven't yet reached. So there's that play as well, I guess. But to talk about some of the other works in the exhibition, as the title of the show says, the exhibition is naked, it's minimal, it's pared down. But the works themselves are often thick with meaning. For instance, the work Bare Excitation, which is a work that's very Moderne Museet in the sense that it references several artists who are represented in the collection of the museum or in the exhibition history of the museum. You already mentioned Duchamp. Could you talk a bit about this work?
Yeah, I could at least try. I think actually there's many things in the exhibition that relates to the history, in the sense that when I was invited, I thought, okay, how can I do something that were like one take? I really want that feeling. So there, of course, what comes to mind is maybe more like Paul Czech and Horn and these types of big scale installations. And then I've had an obsession with Lee Lozano for a long time because she has her idiosyncratic way of dealing with quantum physics, actually. And of course a painting practice as well. And she also has this very vulgar language that I think is also interesting, because I think what I find in particle physics, for instance, is a potential very hardcore language in a way, or a funny language when it comes to being like hardcore science. So it's very bodily and very funny to play with. And there, of course, again, back to Duchamp, he also has this playful physics. He was also very inspired by quantum physics or physics of his time. So that's maybe the relation. And then, yeah, I can probably come with many layers to that, but it is also a way just to generate and work on existing energy, so to speak. So to load the pieces. I also try to load them with my titles and with these kind of things. As a few, when we're talking about like Lee Lozano, there's a few Kant words here and there. There's a Kant mill, and also the pieces themselves, the blades, when their openings are also sort of openings, and I think that's, again, it's also to turn things around from this very like male-dominated scientific machinery, forward moving, and then maybe going into like circular, sensitive, but also more fragile.
No, to go back to the bodiliness and the sauciness because there's some very clear echoes between your work and the work of Duchamp and Lozano exactly in the sense that in the sense of the explicitness and the sexuality at play here. When you first start noticing it, your exhibition is also full of genitalia, right? And there are, as you say, openings, there are invaginations, and there are phallic shapes that are more or less intact as well. This is also interesting in relation to your discussion of science and the spiritual, because the exhibition is constantly teetering between the human and the non-human, right? And it seems that with the eroticism of the exhibition, we are on solid human ground, or what? I mean, at the same time, there are other things at play as well. I remember during the making of the exhibition, you talked about cosmic perversion. And in the film, there's a line that says something about dressed and undressed particles. So, I mean, does the universe also get it on?
At least I think that maybe this. Of course, that can sound really wrong, but I have a feeling that maybe in these excited states that we can get access to through our bodies or other bodies, that's maybe where we connect with all these other things. So I think that, of course, it gives it flesh, and you are in that realm, but you're also potentially exactly elsewhere in that moment. So that's probably what I'm playing with, with this idea of the wind that are touching you, or the tongues, fire. So that's that whole thing of being touched by something that are, I don't know exactly what I should call it, but it's maybe more into this imagination or.
Yeah. I mean, just to stay with the theme of embodiment. I mean, in general, as an overall thing, you work with science and the esoteric as forms of knowledge that modernity has kept apart from one another, or tried to keep apart from one another. And in the exhibition, science is represented by quantum physics, and the esoteric is represented, for instance, by tantric philosophy, but also by the icon as a form of religious painting. And I guess you can say that in the modern logic, science and the esoteric is opposed because the esoteric knows or claims that there's no direct access to truth, whereas science says that, well, yes, you can reach truth. And when you walk around in your exhibition, or when I have walked around in your exhibition for the first time a little earlier today, I got the sort of a very distinct feeling of experiencing different philosophies, different worldviews, diffracting in each other, different worldviews that break open in one another, so to speak. And I want to call this feeling of your exhibition an embodied experience of knowing, which is also a highly contradictory state. It's a highly contradictory experience because neither the body nor knowledge has any clear limits anymore. But I'm wondering, in this struggle between embodiment and knowledge, is the exhibition ultimately on the side of the esoteric? Is it ultimately on the side of the unknowable?
Probably yes, but I think, I don't know if I want to cut it so sharply. I think in a way what I experienced going to places like CERN and Niels Bohr Institute is that there is an openness in the scientific world that spirituality actually sometimes needs. So I think this, deep, whatever cosmic adventure is placed in both realms, but true, of course, I'm not giving people an experience of dark matter or quantum physics in this exhibition. It's more like a philosophy of how to meet the world, I would say, and meet also the experiments that I try to do.
On that note, you insist on the term spiritual and spirituality, which I find interesting because it seems to me that the spiritual is a concept that has disappeared from art or even been banned from art during many decades now. So why bring it back? Why talk about spiritual needs today?
I have it's tough. I understand why. I understand why it needed to be removed for a while. Maybe due also to the misuse in religion and so on. And there was also, of course, the big wave of quantum mysticism, which is another dimension of this mixing. But there, I feel that it was very much the entanglement and the sort of potential, but they wanted to sort of cut off the more problematic sides of quantum mechanics to make it fit the spiritual belief systems in a way. So I think when I try to include the spiritual practice, or like the tantric mantra that moves through the exhibition, it has to do with maybe a need for this iteration, this repetition that can somehow make us, I don't know, it feels like the society is just like, yeah, that's another mill. and I have a feeling we need maybe to center in a different way. And there I have a feeling that the practice part is really important. And you get that within tantric technology or Kundalini yoga, whatever you decide to do. And for me, that has been the places where I've had these experiences of also connecting to something that are bigger than me and has maybe this feeling of a vision that you can then grasp, and then it's gone again, and then you have to figure that out. I'm not answering your question.
No,
really.
I think you are. I think you are. No,
Okay.
but so Kundalini, for instance, would be your spiritual practice.
Yeah, I guess Kundalini is definitely a practice that I have had on the side, and not even on the side, because I feel that it has also informed the work. But I guess what I mean about the problems within spirituality is probably sometimes when you feel that you have to enter that also power system. But I feel that I've been a little outside. Then you can use the good things from the techniques and the practice, and you can actually bring it in and give energy to other things. So I have a feeling that we just need to figure out how we give energy and how we circulate it differently.
I have a feeling that your works in the exhibition to make the beholder pray in a very sophisticated way. I mean, if praying is to keep looking for meaning in what happens to you, then your works make us pray in that sense, I believe.
That would be beautiful.
Great. Thanks a lot, Lea.